Tennessee. And I want to find out who's come the farthest to be here today. My husband and I came from Seattle.
I came here from
Got anybody here from Washington?
I'm gonna crack joke.
I'm going to move closer. Idaho, Montana, California. Oh, we got a Californian here. Oh,
I'm gonna crack joke on Half-Life. You ever do it? I say I'm gonna.
let's move California, Nevada, Denver, Colorado, Utah,
Zen.
Fabulous. Oh, it's working now. So, Pennsylvania.
Zen.
Zen? Did you say that? Zen?
Yes, Half-Life, the original Half-Life. Zen.
Oh, okay.
Zen.
Pennsylvania. We have Pennsylvania. Yeah, and you, James?
Yeah, just moved here, actually.
Oh, okay.
Right out, far, far away.
So, I have never been to San Antonio before. I've worked in Houston, I've worked in Dallas, I've been to El Paso, but I'd never come to San Antonio, and I had the most wonderful walk last night. And did you know that for people over 50, and I'm over 50, that San Antonio is on the 10 best list? 10, so when you all are over 50, and I don't think there's anybody else in this room who's over 50, but when you all are over 50, San Antonio will be a good place for you all to live. Because they say it's one of the 10 best cities in the country for people over 50.
My mom's over 50.
So I assume you all know that I'm Ellen McLean. And I did the voices for GLaDOS. Are we going to get a yell for Carolyn? How about the turrets? But you know I'm also the administrator of the time. And then I'm that kind of creepy voice in Half-Life 2.
Overwatch?
Overwatch, yes. So, I have found that people who like GLaDOS perhaps like to perform as well. Do we have performers here? Yes. What are you?
I'm actually a dancer for a maid cafe.
You're a dancer. Great. And you?
I play the alto saxophone.
Yes, play the saxophone. You know, I had to play the baritone sax in a show once. And I took 2 lessons to do it. I had to play Good Ship Lollipop. Etc. I played terribly, but it was very funny. And what do you do?
I'm just weren't you one of the voice actors in one of the Left 4 Dead characters?
So, in Left 4 Dead, my husband, and that's how I always say my husband's name, my husband, John Patrick Lowry, voice of the sniper and author of his own book, Dancing with Eternity. Which we are selling when we sign autographs tomorrow at 11 a.m. It's a good book. It's a good book. But John and I, when we first worked for Valve, the guys at Valve didn't know that we were married. You know, they just kind of hired John Patrick Lowry, and they just hired me, Ellen McLean. And then one time we were doing work on Team Fortress 2, and John was, I can't remember who was called in first, but John was called in for an hour appointment, to record, and then I was called in. But I think I was first, because I had an hour appointment, and I said, "Oh, you're going to work with my husband the next hour." And they said, "Your husband? Who's your husband?" And I said, "John Patrick Lowry." And they said, "No, they didn't know we were married." We have the same agent and everything. But because of the fact that we were married when they were putting Left for Dead together, they thought it would be funny if John and I played a bickering married couple in Left for Dead. So, and this is one of the few times, because usually when you record a character in a game, even if you're in dialogue with another character, for example, I never met Stephen Merchant. They played his lines for me. Stephen Merchant never met me. They played my lines for him. But for Left 4 Dead, they brought in John and me together, and they had a script, but they also thought, oh, just improvise. You all know how to fight. So we did. So John and I, if you get to the houseboat, this is so arcane, but if you get to the houseboat and you listen to the radio on the houseboat, John's the voice saying, oh, we'll come pick you up. We'll come save you. And I'm in the voice saying, no, there's zombies there. We're not going to go get them. So that's what John and I do in Left 4 Dead. So do we have other performers? Singers, raise your hands. Yes, of course there's singers here. Yes, James, thank you very much. Thank you. Are there any actors here? Yes, actors, of course. And you actors, are you interested in doing voice work? Yeah. Okay, so what my husband will say to you is, get a voice demo. Get a voice demo. And lots of times people can make them themselves on their home computers. John and I do all of our auditions for all of these games. We do it on the home computer. And if he were here, he could tell you what program we use. Man, I can't remember it. But he's my technical support. But we do all the auditions at home, and then they get sent, little MP3 files, they get sent to the client. So the client listens to us. Now, I know we had one dancer here. Any other dancers? I was going through singers, actors, dancers. No, you are the only dancer. Oh my gosh. Yes, dancer, okay. Dancers work really, really hard. But I teach at a place near Seattle, and it's called Kids Stage. And all my students, they're from 6th grade through high school, and they are interested in doing music theater. And so we teach them acting and dancing and singing. And I'm the one who teaches them how to sing, and I'm tough. I am tough. Because for acting and singing and dancing, what is our instrument? Our body. Thank you. So our body is our instrument. And you have to take care of it. Now, I've been watching the Olympics. Have you all been watching the Olympics? I mean, that looks so impossible to me. But I know that sometimes I've sung some things, an opera, and people say, how did you do that? And I worked on it for a long, long time. I worked on my singing for a long time. I started studying voice when I was 13 in Nashville, Tennessee. And then I went to school in North Carolina at the North Carolina School of the Arts. And then I went to school in Boston at New England Conservatory. And then I moved to New York. And that was a big shock. Because there in New York, I started studying acting, and I continued to study dance, and I continued to study voice. But you all know that you learn your whole life. We work on what we love our whole lives. We never stop learning, ever. And you know what I've learned how to do recently? I can text. It's true, I can text. Because my voice students taught me how to do it. So we text, we set up appointments and everything, and they come, and I teach them singing, and they teach me about the world as it is now. So, I imagine that people have questions, yeah? Are there any questions from anybody? Did you want to know anything about? Yes, Why don't you come here? I'll hand you the microphone. You ask the question, and I'll answer.
What was the favorite part of Portal 2 that you made?
Well, I think the funniest part was when I got to be the potato. And they actually told me that I sounded too strong. They kept saying, "No, Ellen, you're weak. You're weak." And I loved the part where when I got angry, I'd short out. And then I come in, what happened? I liked that part. Thank you. Oh, yes, the bird. Well, it's the baby. I like the baby birds. Those baby birds are on my side. So, yes, in the green, come on up. What is your question?
That's Nikki. Thank you, Nikki.
Do you have any voice appearances in Half-Life Episode 3 or Half-Life 3 yet?
No, John and I are friends with a gentleman named Bill Van Buren, who has been a producer at Valve for 11 years. So we worked with him on Half-Life 2 and, of course, on Team Fortress 2 and, the Portal games. And we talked to him just 2 weeks ago. John and I had dinner with he and his wife. No threes. No threes. No threes. Valve doesn't do threes.
Come on, where's Left 4 Dead?
Yeah, well, but those zombies, But what he said about that, he was actually speaking about Half-Life 2, and games are developing. This is the early stage of games. John did his first game in '97, and that was the very beginning of computer games. After Donkey Kong. Oh, see, I know that name. But Bill Van Buren was saying that the games are going toward motion capture, mocap, and Team Fortress 2 and Half-Life 2 are interactive. And the way it works technologically, and I won't say this right, is that when the player is, addressing, Alex in Half-Life 2, that Alex turns and looks at you and talks to you. And as you move around the room, the characters look at you and address you where you are in the room. That doesn't happen in mocap. So, for them to create a Half-Life 3, to do it in mocap, it would change the interaction of the game. So Valve isn't interested in doing that. But they're working on Dota 2. They're doing all sorts of stuff for Dota 2. And John and I have done voices in Dota 2. John is Storm Spirit in Dota 2. And I think he's other voices too, but I don't remember the names. And I am Brood Mother, a big spider, and Death Prophet. And I did a lot of auditions. I auditioned for like 20 different characters in that game. And, they didn't choose me for any of them. Damn. And I said, why not? And Bill told me, we're saving you for something more poisonous. So I'm just the bad guy. I'm just always the bad guy. Now I saw a hand here. Yes, come on up. But I saw a hand over there too. But that's okay. We'll get questions.
Okay.
What, out of all the games you played, you did voices, what was your favorite line in any of them, and how did you and your husband meet?
Okay.
Okay, so I'll tell you why this is my favorite line. Because if you all know these games, in Portal, after GLaDOS loses the morality core, her voice changes. So, I came up with something.
Killing you and giving you good advice aren't mutually exclusive. The rocket really is the way to go.
In Indiana, Bloomington, Indiana, he was going to Indiana University, and we both got hired for a production of Jerome Kern and Oscar Hammerstein II's show, Showboat, for a European tour. So John got hired out of Indiana, and he was in the orchestra. He played guitar and banjo. And I got hired out of New York City. I was the ingenue. I was Magnolia, the sweet young thing. That was a long time ago. And we met in Arnhem, Holland, because the character of Magnolia is supposed to play the guitar in Act 2 of Showboat, and I had bought a guitar, and I had been taking lessons, and I was working hard on this, but they didn't want me to play Can't Help Loving That Man in the key of D, which was easy. They wanted me to play it in the key of E flat, which was hard. So I couldn't learn how. So the first thing I ever said to my husband was, because I said to the conductor, I said, as soon as the guitarist gets here, I got to work with him. As soon as the guitarist gets here, I got to work with him. So I met him, and I said to him, have they told you how pitiful I am? And that's the first thing. And so he knows really well how pitiful I am now, because we celebrated 25 years of marriage in December. We have a lot of fun. You'll see him. So are y'all going to come hear us play and sing tonight at 7:30? Yeah! Okay, so you hear he's playing the banjo tonight. He's good on the banjo. Okay, any more questions? Now you ask your question. You, sir. Okay.
What is your absolutely favorite part of being the administrator in Team Fortress 2?
I like that artist rendering of that very thin, bitchy woman, chainsaw, with this gray streak in her hair. Over time. Because, a fan actually made that picture, and then Valve bought it. But I thought, yes, of course that's what the character looks like. And I have never been that thin, ever. I wish I were. But I don't smoke. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, yeah, you, the blonde, and then you.
Nice shirt.
Where did you get the inspiration for the opera Caramia?
So the turret opera, or Cara Mia Addio, was written by Mike Moraski because he wrote the whole score for Portal 2, except for Want You Gone, which was written by Jonathan Coulton.
Yay!
But the turret opera, the creators at Valve knew that everybody would expect a song. And of course they wanted Jonathan Coulton to write another song. But they also wanted to give the player something unexpected. And, there's so many little turrets. And it was actually one of the designers who thought of having a turret chorus. But then Mike Moraski, knowing that I was an opera singer, thought, we should have one little short, fat turret. That's because the game ain't over till the fat lady sings. You know that expression? Well, the fat lady is the opera singer. And so he wrote the music, and then when we were in the recording studio, and I actually recorded both Want You Gone and Cara Mia Addio the same day. Same day. We did, first 2 hours was Want You Gone, second 2 hours was the turret opera. And Mike said, well, can you come up with some words? And I said, sure. Sure, I'll make up something. Because I've sung in Italian a lot. And I speak, parlo un poco italiano, ma non bene. Solamente un poco. But I speak Italian, not well. One of my sisters, lived in Italy for 16 years and visited her. And so I came up with some words. And then it was very interesting to Mike and me how people listened to those words and they heard some things as I said them, and some things they just kind of made up out of whole cloth. But see, neither Mike nor I are actually going to tell people what I really said. But I know what I really said. But all of these things about, am I singing about cielo? Because, cielo is the Italian word for sky or heaven, which is interesting because the character of Cel is a homonym. It's a homonym. I remember that from grade school. So does that answer your question? Okay, and you, sir?
After you recorded for GLaDOS, what was your reaction when you first heard your voice altered for S Robot-like?
Well, for the first game, how I got the gig was that they put the whole game together. Now, I should give you the backstory, and some of you may know this. There's a school in the Seattle area, actually in Redmond, called DigiPen. And if any of you all are interested in game design, DigiPen is a great school. And 2 people graduated from DigiPen, Kim Swift and Jeet Barnett. And they graduated, I think Kim graduated in 05 maybe, and Jeet graduated in 06. And they put together a game called Narbacular Drop.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yes, Narbacular Drop. And Gabe Newell, who is, the director, the big cheese at Valve, went to the school, just as sort of, a professional mentor, and they presented Narbacular Drop to him as their senior project. He liked it. He said, come on over to Valve and I want you to show this to a bunch of other people. So the students went to Valve, they showed, other staff at Valve Narbacular Drop. And I saw Kim Swift recently, and she was saying this. Gabe Newell just got up, walked out with like a couple other people, just left. And they're sitting there, and somebody comes in about 5 minutes later and says, come with me. So he took the students to another room. Gabe was sitting in there and said, do you all want a job at Valve? And they said, yeah. So Gabe Newell hired all of these students who put together Narbacular Drop. Of course, that's the game that ultimately became Portal, but they had a minuscule budget, and to put the whole game together they used literally a computer-generated voice, but they found out that that voice was copyrighted, so they couldn't use it without paying a bunch of money, and they found out that hiring an actor would be cheaper.
And the voice GLaDOS.
So they sent out a sound file of this computerized voice to a bunch of actresses in town. One was me. And they said, sound as much like this computerized voice as you possibly can. And I got the closest. And the person who developed the sound processing for GLaDOS's voice is Bill Van Buren. Because he's a musician. He's a rock musician, actually, and has played with rock bands and has produced, rock music, recordings. But he's the one who developed the specific processing to make GLaDOS sound like GLaDOS. So, does that answer your question? Okay, now let's see. I see 2 red-headed people. Come up together. All right.
Oh my God, really?
Okay, so you're closer, you go first.
How many years did you study voice and where did you study? Oh, okay.
So I started studying voice when I was 13. I was in the 8th grade. And I studied with Shirley Courtner in Nashville, Tennessee. And I stayed in Nashville for 4 years and studied there with Mrs. Courtner first, and then a lady named Shirley Zielinski. And then I went to the School of the Arts, and I studied with, what was her name? Geraldine, I'm forgetting her name, and William Beck. Oh my God. But I had probably had like 20 different voice teachers, and I attribute my best technique to a woman named Sandra McLean, no relation. And I met her in New York City, and I studied Ellen McLean, studied with Sandra McLean. But I'm still studying. I still coach. And I'm 59, going to turn 60 in December. John just turned 60 in June. So we're getting into all these movies now at the senior age. We're so pleased. But I'm still studying. I coach and, worked with teachers in the Seattle area. So I'm still working. Are you a singer?
Yes.
Yes. And so, how long have you been studying?
I've been singing since I can remember. I went to high school for vocals, so.
Yeah, where'd you go to high school?
High school for performing and visual arts in Houston.
Great. Oh, yes. I worked in Houston at Theater Under the Stars in 1990. Hey, there's my husband, John Patrick Lowry.
All the words in the third opera Italian?
I'm not saying. Now, I have another question to answer over here. You.
How do you personally feel about the relationship between GLaDOS and Chell?
All right. Some people think that Carolyn and Kate Johnson are Chell's parents. You don't know. I think, you know what I honestly think? I think GLaDOS is jealous of Chell. Chell is so beautiful. Chell is so beautiful and so young and so live and can just run around and hop around all over the place, and I'm stuck to the ceiling. Except when I'm the potato.
You're still being held by Chell.
I think GLaDOS is jealous of Chell. That's what I think. Okay? All right. Yes, you. All right.
What was the hardest line you ever had to do? And can I have some cake?
Well, I'm going to talk about that cake first. People don't know this. I just found this out. I was reading a restaurant review in the Seattle Times just this week. And it was about a bakery. Every place in Seattle serves coffee, trust me. They all serve coffee. So it was, coffee shop and bakery, etc. And the main location was in Redmond, which is really close to where Valve is and where a lot of the Valve people live. And there's a bakery there that had a German chocolate cake. No, I'm lying. Black Forest cake. Black Forest cake that they put that cake in the Portal game. And I found this out because the restaurant review was talking about it. And they were saying, they have a new location in Seattle now, the same bakery, and you can go there and you can see the Portal cake. So it's a real cake that these Valve, artists loved. And they put it in the game.
Is it a lie?
Now, I can't give you cake, but now I've forgotten the other part of the question. Who remembers? Hardest line? Well, I'm sure it has something to do with neurotoxin and aperture science, and it's one of those really long ones that sounds like it's technical, but it isn't. It's just totally made up, and I don't remember it because I'm sure I struggled getting through it. So the science lines, because I have to admit that even though GLaDOS does everything for science, I always avoided science, and I was wrong. I was wrong, because now I'm a big space fan. And y'all know about Curiosity, don't you?
Oh, the Curiosity
Okay,
Core!
listen, I am following Curiosity. I have totally anthropomorphized Curiosity. Totally. Curiosity is a very close personal friend. So, you, sir.
Wait a minute. Don't pout.
What was your first thought when you found out you were doing the voice for a potato?
I guffawed. I thought it was hysterical. No, it was Eric Wolpaw and Jay Pinkerton who were the principal writers. You know, Chet Palasek wrote the, Atlas and Peabody part of the game, the multiplayer game. But when I heard that I was going to be a potato, I thought, yes. Yes. Because I thought, how wonderful. And of course, she's potatoes. Oh, those guys are so funny. They are so funny. Such wonderful writers. So, does that answer? Yes, thank you. All right, now my dancer, come up my dancer, don't you thrust out that lower lip.
First of all, I am a huge fan. I actually cosplayed GLaDOS at ICON last year, and I made the cake and everything, so you're basically my idol. But I was actually wondering, not a lot of people know of the song that Wheatley, they wrote for Wheatley on Portal 2. It was called Don't Call Me a Moron, but it was replaced by I Want You Gone. Any idea why they switched it out with GLaDOS?
No one's ever told me that. No, how did you find this out? On Reddit or something? No, that's how I find out stuff.
Told me about it. He told me about it when I was going to do my panel, and he's like, "Hey, did you hear Wheatley originally had a song?" And I was like, "He did?" And I listened to it, and it was really, really funny. It was basically Wheatley saying, "I'm not a moron. My cue is from here to the moon. I am not a moron." It's like,
oh no, I'm going to ask Bill Van Buren about this. This is the first I've ever heard.
yeah.
No, nobody maybe didn't want to hurt my feelings. They didn't tell me. No, and from not the very beginning, but of course, since there was a song with Portal, at some point I said, well, is there going to be a song? And they said, oh, yeah, there's going to be a song. So, I don't know, maybe he didn't, maybe Stephen Merchant didn't want to sing.
I mean, because they had him singing the whole song. It was the whole song exactly.
I see, so it has been recorded.
Mm-hmm. And you can rarely find it on the internet. It's really hard to find, but I have a few copies on my computer.
I got to hear that. That's great. Well, thank you. All right. Okay, well, I have to ask James. Come on, James. But where's Jim?
Jim's back there.
Well, bring Jim up. Okay. Everybody, this is Jim.
Hi, Jim.
Jim the turret. So, but James, what is your question?
All right. How would you say GLaDOS has changed from Portal 1 to Portal 2? Did you go into Portal 2 with more of an idea of how you wanted the character to be?
Well, I was more nervous. Because for Portal, I wasn't nervous at all. I didn't really know what I was doing. They just wanted me to sound like this computer voice, so I did. And then she just kept getting crazier and crazier and crazier. And I didn't really know what was happening. And then Eric Wolpaw said, well, you know, and you just start spouting this cake recipe, and it doesn't make any sense. And so I didn't know that much about it. But when I went in for Portal 2, I went in every 2 weeks for about 10 months and recorded 4 hours of copy. And the game changed. I mean, when they started creating Portal 2, they didn't know what they were going to do. And the plot changed. And I just kept recording copy. I kept recording copy, and they made their final decisions as the game was being created. Because for Portal, pretty much the game was finished when I came in to re-record the stuff the computer voice had said. But for Portal 2, they brought me in from the very beginning, because the artists wanted to hear my voice, which of course they became sick of pretty quickly, but they wanted to hear my voice. So, and all of us were nervous because nobody expected Portal to be so popular. And then, you know, after you have a hit, it's like, oh my God, now we've got pressure on us. So we were all kind of nervous, me and the writers, everybody. Is that good, James? Yes. Okay. Bye, James.
All right, you.
In one of the Portal games, GLaDOS tells something to Chell, but she speeds it up, and when you slow that voice clip down, it's a line from Moby Dick. What is it there?
Because Eric Wolpaw likes Moby Dick. No, that's the reason. That's why it's there. And he just thought it would be cool if GLaDOS said something from Moby Dick. And I don't know if it's the first game or the second game, but they also had me record just facts. Just a whole big list of facts. And, you know, sometimes I had to look up some of the words to find out what they meant. So, you have a very beautiful speaking voice. Well, so did that answer your question? Yes. Okay, thank you. Ah, I see an orange arm. You were first, so let's move. Lady in the violet. The violet.
So excited.
Just want to say, love your work. Obviously, I mean, that's what everyone on probably sure is thinking. Since, you know, you were saying how Portal became a big hit and everything like that, how have you emotionally felt? Like, you know, all this praise that's coming from your voice work. Obviously, you've won an award for doing GLaDOS and everything like that. How have you felt personally? Like, just, you know, have you felt emotionally overwhelmed, anything like that, or coming to these conventions and talking with fans? How have you felt?
What? Yeah, sure, here.
You know that we're supposed to get 12 hugs a day to be healthy. I want everybody to realize that. Okay, yeah. So, but this means, you know, we have to give each other hugs, 12 hugs a day. I get lots of hugs from John. No, but you know, that's a very good question. My first inkling, our first inkling, you know, John and I have the same email address, and our first inkling was...
The day after Portal was released, we got an email from Denmark saying people are in the streets of Copenhagen chanting, "The cake is alive."
You know, oh my God, they know the game in Denmark. The Little Mermaid knows Portal. So it was, you know, I'm a performer, and I've always been a performer. I got in trouble in the first grade. The teacher went out of the room. We had little tables that 4 of us sat around in the first grade. The teacher would go out of the room. I would get up on the table and sing and dance for the other students. And I got in lots of trouble. But I have always been a performer. So, you know, talking to people, it was a big surprise. You know, I wanted to be famous, you know, back in my 30s. And then I got into my 50s, and now people know, you know, Ellen McLean's an actor. A big surprise to me. You know, life is such a big surprise. I didn't know that I was going to go to Europe and meet my husband. So, you know, you never...
When you start out to be an opera singer, and you get famous for being a passive-aggressive homicidal computer.
You, sir, are the only other person in the room older than 50, so you could come up here. I'd let you come up and have a seat. get around. Does this other microphone work, Nikki? Talk about passive aggressive. So see, he can talk too.
Yeah. I know all the secrets. She won't tell you, so go ahead and ask.
So
coming out.
now, oh my gosh, you sir in the middle. Yes.
And then you can answer.
Okay.
So whatever he's asking, you're going to answer.
It'd be interesting if you answer. I wanted to ask you about the first time that you read for the character of GLaDOS.
He was there.
What are your first impressions of, as an actress about the character? I think GLaDOS is probably one of the most distinctive characters, not just in gaming, but in a lot of different mediums. What did you think of it as an actress, the material?
Yeah, so I'll answer for her. She thought it totally sucked, and she's not made for this. She's an opera singer. What the hell is she doing? This crap. It's like, no. I mean, I think this is the funny thing is that Valve hired both of us for Half-Life 2, having no idea that we were married to each other because she goes by Ellen McLean. Great. That we blew the entire circuit breaker.
I told that story.
But I think that we were already used to working for Valve, and we knew how creative they were and how well they worked with actors. And when some of the comic stuff and the insulting stuff came in for GLaDOS to read, I just thought it was brilliant, and we talked about it quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
Because finding the balance of having this kind of dispassionate mechanical voice.
Right. I still had to be a computer, but they actually wanted me to have an emotional life. And it's like, well, having an emotional life is human. But they wanted GLaDOS to continue to sound like a computer, but they wanted her to have emotional variation.
Well,
so that was hard.
What I think Ellen did so brilliantly was to come up with an emotional life that sounded like it was the product of algorithms. That sounded manufactured, but had no less bite because of that. And I think that the way that she balanced herself between this absolutely mechanical, lifeless thing and what we have to assume in a computer is programming that imitates human behavior to be as scathing and belittling as possible. I thought it was really good, and we talked about that a good deal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, you all don't know this, but actually one of the reasons when John and I worked on that tour in Europe of Showboat, one of the reasons that we got together is because I'd be on stage and John was in the pit, but sometimes John could see all the action, and John started giving me notes.
No, you started asking for them.
Well, however,
hold it. There you go.
See, I told you he was my technical support, but John is also a director. So when I have questions about a character, he's always the first person I ask. So.
But I think we were both impressed with just the whole idea of
the writing.
Of GLaDOS being an insulting computer, a computer that tells you that you're adopted and stuff like that.
Okay, your arm's getting tired. So
I actually have questions for both of you.
Okay.
I'll
ask
for the sniper, what was your favorite taunt for the sniper? Like the battle cry / taunt.
That was so easy, I think I'm getting worse. And did you have a question for Ellen too? Huh? Mr. President.
In the first Portal game, when GLaDOS insults Chell about you're not smart, you're not a scientist, you're not dark, you're not employed. How were you feeling during that?
Well,
It's okay. It's back now. I would read lines and then I would laugh. And then I'd read it and say, "Yeah, really? You want me to be this mean?" So, but I would laugh. I'd say what they want. I always said what they wanted me to say, but I would laugh. And sometimes, if I thought the line was too mean, I would say something about that too. I said, children are going to play this game. So, because I think it's 10 and up is or it's teen. I think it's teen, yeah. You look like a teen to me. Have I been too mean? Oh, okay.
I watched it and I just cannot laugh.
Well, I'm glad you enjoy it. All right, let's see. Oh, there's some sort of weird thing being stuck up in the air. Yes, with the blue hair. That is sort of a weird thing. What is that?
GLaDOS, I've got a question for you. What is your favorite chord?
Nice job breaking it, hero.
Wait. You want to hear it? I won't let you.
Now it's going to work now. My favorite chord is the morality chord because I lost it. Thank you. All right.
Very energetic over there.
Okay. We like energy.
What was your favorite insult to Chell during the Portal and Portal 2? What was your favorite insult to give her?
I don't really remember. But the one that sticks in my head, I mean, this is not my favorite one, but when I said, you were probably adopted. and I actually talked to her. I said, "You really want me to say this? This is harsh." So, I mean, I don't remember my favorite. That's the most memorable one. All right, Pink.
You do subtly sinister and completely off kilter so very well. Have you gotten the chance to sink your teeth into any really good operatic villains?
Well, because of my voice, I'm a, light lyric soprano.
Carmen, the Gypsy Carmen.
Well, I played a supporting role in Carmen named Mercedes. I was Mercedes in Carmen.
She was badass too.
And I carried a knife.
She's a gypsy, and you didn't want to meet her in the street after dark. Yeah.
But lots of times I've been the sweet young thing in operas, but I also played Prince Orlovsky.
Well, but I think about Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, Romeo and Juliet! I played a boy. Oh, this is such a cool story. Okay, so y'all know the play Romeo and Juliet. Well, in the opera Romeo and Juliet by Charles Gounod, this old French guy, he created a role called Stefano, and Stefano is Romeo's friend. This character doesn't appear in the play, but it was written for a woman to perform it because back in the 19th century, guys in the audience wanted always to see women's legs. So they wrote these things called trouser rolls. So the woman would appear in, little short pants and show off her legs. And so I played the role of Stefano, and this is one of the best compliments I ever got. I was doing a dress rehearsal, and there were a lot of high school kids in the audience. And I do a lot of stuff in the opera before I open my mouth. I mean, you see me, and I had a little short wig on, and I was in pants. And when I started to sing, the audience gasped and said, "Oh, it's a girl. It's a girl." So I convinced them that I was much trimmer then, trust me. But I convinced them that I was a boy.
And we worked on that too because she had to do a sword fight.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, in all the acting that she'd done, she'd never had to be in a fight. And I've had a very colorful past, including, I was a member of a motorcycle gang when I was a teenager. And
Horseman of the apocalypse.
I've been in fights. And so she asked me to work on the fight with her, and I said, you're just not taking this seriously. The problem is, you're not really scared. And so I had her lay on the floor and put her foot up on the couch. And I said, see, when I was in the motorcycle gang, we used to have discussions about, if I stomp on your knee, will your kneecap pop off or will it break? And she started crying.
And I'm still married to him.
But after we did that, all of a sudden her work in the fight took on a completely different thing. She knew that she could really get hurt. She could really get killed in this fight.
But this is what I'm talking about, direction. So I played Stefano, and then I played in The Marriage of Figaro, and I've played different characters in that. I played Susanna the maid, but then more recently I played Marcellina. And Marcellina is this older woman, and she's loaned Figaro some money. And she's got this contract with Figaro that says, either you pay me this money by a certain date or you're going to marry me. But then, of course, she finds out that she's actually Figaro's mother. So that's an interesting part to play. So waving, red shirt, waving. Okay. Oh, you, sir, are the last question.
Okay, I'm just curious, because I play every Valve game that mostly been made. Have you ever played any of the games, both of you? And how does it feel when you hear your voice when you're playing the game?
John has played the games, and I sit in a little chair behind him and watch.
Yeah, I played the Portal games, and I just think they're hilarious, and I love listening to Ellen's work. But it's great playing Half-Life 2, in which I'm all the citizens. And how many here have played Half-Life 2? So some of you know. So the citizens are always glad to see Freeman, right? And so while I'm playing Half-Life 2, I'm always glad to see me. It's like, hey, that must be pretty cool. I like me. But at the same time, my wife is always trying to get me arrested. Citizen, you are really annoying. We're going to take you and send you to another planet. It's like, what the hell is that? It's my wife. But it was very funny because a friend of mine, another actor in town, was playing Half-Life 2, and he said, he was so pissed off. He said, when the citizen came on, I turned around because I thought you had just come into the room. And then I got shot. And I was like, curse you, John Lowry! So.
Well, now, y'all, tonight, the opening ceremonies are at 5, Nikki tells me, and then at 7:30, John and I are going to be performing some songs. And then, at 11 o'clock tomorrow, we're signing autographs, and we will also have John Patrick Lowry's award-winning book, Dancing with Eternity, great science fiction novel, available for sale.
And I only ask you, when you tell your friends that you met Ellen, just say anything you want. But when you tell them that you met me, just say, it was unbelievable. I met award-winning author John Patrick Lowry, award-winning author.
That's what we call him now, award-winning author John Patrick Lowry.
It really takes a long time to meet me now. So
you all have been